In 2026, Portugal remains one of the most talked about European countries for remote professionals. However, as its popularity has grown, so have the requirements. The Digital Nomad visa, also known as the D visa or D8, is still available, but it is no longer as simple as it was a few years ago. Income thresholds have increased, controls have become stricter, and the path to citizenship is now significantly longer. This leads to the main question we hear most often. Is it still worth considering Portugal's digital nomad visa in 2026? And who is it actually suitable for? Today we'll break this down honestly and based on facts. Who can apply, the real income and saving requirements, how the application process works and how long it takes, and which pitfalls most often lead to refusals. Hi, my name is Mia, and you're watching the Visa Dan channel. Here we make immigration visas, residence permits, and citizenship clear and achievable. So, who the Portugal Digital Nomad visa is actually for? Let's start with fundamental but very important point. Portugal's digital nomad visa is not designed for everyone. It's not a universal residence permit for living abroad, but a targeted legal instrument specifically created for remote work. Only non-EU citizens who work remotely for companies or clients located outside Portugal are eligible to apply. This includes salaried employees, freelancers, and business owners, provided that their income is generated outside Portugal. The key requirement is stable and regular income. Consulates and immigration authorities no longer rely on one-time large payment. They want to see consistent monthly income over recent months, with each month meeting the required minimum threshold. If, for example, you work remotely but have irregular income or periods without earnings, this already represents a risk. In 2026, such cases are reviewed much more strictly. Now let's address the most sensitive question. How much do you actually need to earn in 2026 for Portugal to consider your application, and what level of savings must be shown in addition? When we talk about income and savings requirements in 2026, this is where many misconceptions begin. One of the most common myths is that showing a high income alone is sufficient. In practice, this is not the case. In 2026, the minimum income requirement for the main applicant is 3,680 euros per month. This amount equals 4 times Portugal's minimum wage. Importantly, the income must be net, regular, and well documented. In addition to income, applicants must also demonstrate savings. This is a separate requirement that many people overlook. Savings must be shown on top of your income. They cannot replace it. For a single applicant, the minimum required savings are 11,000 euros. For a couple, this increases to 16,000 euros, and if you apply with a child, the amount increases further. For example, a family of 2 adults and 1 child must show approximately 6,500 euros in monthly income and nearly 18,000 in savings. It is important to understand that the funds must be real, accessible, and confirmed by bank statements. Cryptocurrencies, liquid investment portfolios, or funds in transit are generally not accepted. So, where do most problems arise in required documents? Let's look at what you actually need to prepare for the application, because this stage is where the most complications occur. First, your passport. It must be valid for at least 6 months at the time of application. Photos must meet standard requirements. This is not the place for experimentation. Next is the proof of remote work. This includes employment contracts or client agreements, invoices, payslips, and bank statements. All documents must logically match in terms of dates, amounts, and sources of income. A mandatory requirement is a Portuguese tax number. This can be obtained in advance remotely through a legal representative. Without it, the process cannot move forward. You must also provide proof of accommodation in Portugal for at least 12 months. This is a critical nuance. Tourist accommodations and short-term rentals are increasingly rejected. Authorities expect to see a genuine long-term lease or another solid legal basis for residence. A criminal record certificate is another risk area. It must be issued no more than 90 days before submission, apostilled, and translated into Portuguese. Even minor errors in dates or wording can lead to rejection. Health insurance is also required with minimum coverage of 30,000 euros valid throughout the Schengen area. If you are applying with your family members, you will also need marriage and birth certificates, each with apostilled and certified translations. Now let's discuss the process itself. It is not fast, but with a proper preparation, it is relatively predictable. First, you obtain the Portuguese tax number and assemble the complete document package. Translations must be accurate and legally consistent. Informal or self-made translations often result in returned applications. Next comes the appointment at the Portuguese consulate in your country of residence or legal state. Appointments should be booked in advance as available slots appear irregularly and often around specific dates. The application is submitted in person. The consular fee usually ranges from 90 euros to 120 euros. After submissions, the waiting period typically lasts around 60 days. If the decision is positive, you receive a visa valid for 120 days with 2 entries. During this time, you must enter Portugal and schedule an appointment with the Immigration Authority, AIMA, to submit biometrics. After biometrics, a residence permit valid for 2 years is issued. The government fee at this stage is approximately 170 euros. On average, the entire process from initial preparation to receiving the residence card takes between 4 and 6 months. When we talk about renewals, permanent residence, and citizenship, it is a crucial section that is often mentioned briefly, but it determines your long-term strategy. The initial residence permit under the D8 visa is issued for 2 years. It can then be renewed for an additional 3 years, provided that you physically reside in Portugal for at least 183 days per year and continue to meet all requirements. After 5 years of legal residence, you become eligible for permanent residence. Citizenship, however, requires particular attention in 2026. The standard naturalization period has been extended to 10 years. Exceptions apply only to citizens of certain countries, and even then the minimum period is 7 years. In addition to the residence period, applicants must demonstrate knowledge of the Portuguese language, proof of integration, and clean immigration history. Let's now review the most common reasons for refusals or complications. First, unstable income. Even if your average income over 6 months appears sufficient, a single month failing below the minimum threshold may lead to rejection. Second, accommodation issues. Airbnb and short-term bookings are increasingly not accepted. A genuine long-term lease is required. Third, document validity. Certificates, translations, and apostilles must be valid and up to date, specifically at the moment of submission. There is also an important point for families. Family members receive residence permits as dependents, but their right to work must be formed separately. This often comes as a surprise after relocation. To summarize, Portugal's Digital Nomad visa in 2026 remains a viable option. It offers legal status in the EU country, the ability to live in Portugal long-term, bring your family, and build a clear immigration strategy. However, the margin for error is small. Requirements are strict, and the flexibility that existed in previous years is largely gone. That is why preparation and strategic planning are absolutely essential. So if you're considering relocating to Portugal under the digital nomad visa or want to understand whether this option is right for you, contact us. The visa then team will review your case, assess your income and documents, recommend the optimal strategy, and guide you through the process to a successful outcome. This was Mia for Visa Den. Subscribe to the channel, leave your questions in the comments, and see you in the next videos.